Thank you, Danny. Like Danny said, my name is Russ Hodges. I actually live in Vega. I know a lot of you guys in here and actually use probes. And I guess first thing I should say to at least two guys in here, I apologize. We were behind on getting probes out, but we are hustling. I think we're at your farm hopefully today.
We cut around 3 of them now.
That makes my guys really happy, actually. So anyway, I'm going to go over this stuff really fast because, like Danny said, I'm between you guys and lunch. Danny covered some of this. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on some of the other side of this stuff. If I go too fast or you get questions, please stop me. I have no problem with answering any question, or catch me afterwards, because I will try my best to be done in about 15 minutes, because I know you're hungry, because I am. So anyway, all this stuff is web-based. It's a 4-foot probe we're putting in your ground with a sensor every 4 inches. We are measuring soil moisture, electroconductivity, and temperature. Electroconductivity is basically bulk salts. So if you have salty water, or if you're pumping effluent water, you can watch salt movements, whether you're placing your top foot, second foot, third foot, whatever. If you do not, we're watching fertilizer movements, which is, I mean, it's nitrogen. You're watching nitrogen movements, okay? So the idea here is you're able to see exactly what's going on underground on a layer by layer zones of your soil. And again, just using this information to make real-time decisions. I mean, you're able to see exactly what the crop needs or what it's using, and therefore what it needs based off of your watering capacity and efficiency with your water. So before I go on, and that's what tools like this are for. A lot of guys, you know, you heard Eric say it earlier, just turn your pivot on and let it go. For the most part, that is true. However, can we be more efficient with that turning it on and letting it go? And so I'll show you some data, what a lot of guys have found out, because they've done that. They've turned it on and let it go, but what they found out is they can change their timing up with their pivot to put out more or put out less and be more efficient. So in other words, you're using the same amount of water, but you're making more money with the same amount of water. You guys follow me so far? I'm going to go fast, I promise. All right, so just quickly, I just wanted to show you guys, if you logged on, clicked on, this is what you would get. Everywhere you see a pin on the map, that is where a probe is actually located. And then all your fields are named over to the left, and you would just click on these. Everything is color-coded, kind of like just pretty much anything you can do anymore. Red, yellow, green, and blue. Blue being the wettest, red being the driest. So if we clicked on one of those pretty little pins, this is what we're taken to. You saw this with Danny earlier, and this is a summary of your entire profile. This is all 12 sensors on this graph. We've put it in picture form over here, so if you're brand new to a probe, hopefully you could figure out what you needed in the first few weeks. If you don't want to call me, most of you guys are pretty good at calling me, but hopefully you can figure it out here. You've got where your roots are diving down to, how full your profile is, where you're actively pulling from, and then the rest of your sensors. So in other words, first part of the season, the idea there is you could have roots down to say 8 inches, and you could actually dry that out, but below that you still got 40 inches of probe, and you could be pretty wet. And so it's just letting you know where you're at actively pulling root-wise and your full profile until they match up. We are pulling in local weather. This is hard to see on here, it's kind of fuzzy. So I'm going to tell you what it's doing. We're pulling in local weather and tell you where your last irrigation, how deep you went, all that's going over here. The graph itself, every spike is an irrigation or rainfall event. Water being pulled out, literally stair steps down, and that's a day and night use. Plant drinks during the day, rests at night, so you get a beautiful stair stepping action. Blue line is a full point. Red line, just like Danny said, is what we call a refill point, but it's a protect your yield line. It's not you're out of water. We're trying to protect your bushels. So obviously you can pull below that. You can see that on this graph. Somewhere below here, there is a danger point, and that's a wilting point. And that's what nobody wants to hit, because your loss there is extreme, and you've lost a ton of money. Are you guys tracking with me so far? If you're not, just please stop. All right, so let's move on. Just a quick overview. There is the green band. That is what we're considering an optimal growing band. Then it's your water use efficiency curve. Okay, guys, so as you can see, as you progress throughout the year, the green band goes up and then it comes back down as your water use comes down as well. So in a corn crop, or what you'll see is as you approach tassel, in order to protect yield, the more water you have in your profile, the better, because your highest water use is during that period. And in our world, we deficit irrigate. So if you can keep your lines at or above the green band throughout the season, the idea there is you've kept the top 2 foot of your soil happy and healthy, and therefore water is not going to be a limiting factor to yield. It's going to be environment, it's going to be insects, all those other great things that we have to deal with. And then again, everything's color coded. You can see those pins that I was telling you about earlier. Red being that you're at or below your full point. Yellow means you're below your green band. Green means you're in the green band, and blue means you're at or above your full point. And again, if you guys get into this, we'll give you information to refresh you and all that stuff. So no use trying to memorize all this now. But here's what we're trying to do, and this is going to be the quick part of it. Where are your root zones? How deep are you pushing your water? And this all comes into play with if you're fertigating, and specifically if you're fertigating, you want to place that fertilizer where you're pulling water from. Even if you have roots at 48 inches, if you're so wet this year you're only having to pull from the top 20, and you fertigate, you don't want to push that fertilizer below 20 inches, because I mean you're just not going to pull it out from there. So knowing that information is critical, especially in today's day where everything is so precision, especially with what David and Eric do at Better Harvest. You know, they're telling you put on 10 units now at V8 or V6 or whatever it is. You want that 10 units available to the plant, so you want to place it where you're actually going to pull it out of the ground. You don't want to put it below it, because then you're hurting your yield. So those are the few things we're going to go over real quick. Depth of root zone, how do we know? So I showed you on the graph a while ago, that was a summary. This is each individual sensor, layer by layer. You can see over here, everything's color coordinated, 4 inches all the way down to 48. So what we're able to see is the moisture on each 4-inch layer. And so where we see stair stepping on each one of these layers lets us know there's a day and night pull at that depth. There's only one thing that's going to give you that signature, and that's a plant root. And that's either your crop or a weed, but either way you're sucking moisture out at that depth, and we know you have active roots whenever you see that stair stepping at those depths. You guys follow me? Now again, we tell you that on that picture on the first page. We're going to tell you it's an algorithm designed to do what the human eye does. Now I'll be the first to tell you it is not perfect. It's a mathematical formula trying to do what your eye does, and it isn't always perfect. So I would always tell you guys, whether you have probes now or are getting them, to come to this page. This is where all your information is, because you can see everything you need to know. So that's how we know where you're actively pulling from. Water infiltration, how deep is your irrigation going, or how deep did your rainfall go? Again, on the soil moisture tab, where all 12 sensors are, same thing as on the summary graph. If the line goes up, water hit that sensor. Okay, so you can see here the little black blue line. I don't know, way back there it's hard to see. I was back there, but everywhere it spikes up, water hit that sensor. Okay, so on this particular line here, this is 24 inches, but you see the line here and here. Water didn't go below 24. So if you're irrigating, you can see exactly how deep your irrigation went. If you get a 3-inch rain, and you're like, well, did some of that run out of my field, or did it all soak in? You come look at your probe, and if it only went 24 inches, you can bet the rest of that ran out of your field. So, I mean, there's lots of use to this, knowing how deep your irrigation went. But the main thing is efficiency. I mean, how well are you irrigating? Drainage, Danny touched on this, and he showed you a summary graph. What I want you to see here is the individual sensors. So you see these spikes on all of these sensors in here. That means water hit that sensor, but my line is flat before the irrigation and after the irrigation. So you see here, it always sees the water. The probe always sees the water. If your soil could hold more water, like you can see up here, water, here's the line before the irrigation. Water goes in, and then after it, you captured that. Can you guys see that way back there on that, probably the hardest line I could point out to you? You captured water. Everything below this line, it stays flat. That's classic drainage. It's just like a potted plant when you overwater it. The water enters the pot, but it comes straight out the bottom. And that's exactly what it's doing here. And so the probe sees it because it runs by the probe, and then it just keeps on going. So in this particular field, this guy, I'll tell you that light blue line I was showing you is 24 inches, and everything below it, he wasn't even pulling water out from that depth. He didn't need to. He kept the top so wet. But every time he irrigated, he pulled fertilizer with it. So if you're not making up for that fertilizer you're pulling below your active root zones, your yield will show it. So, you know, if you're shooting for 300 bushel corn, and this is how you irrigate, you're probably going to have to put out twice the amount of fertilizer you would otherwise. Or you're going to wind up with 170 bushel corn, even though you irrigated and planted for 300. You guys still with me? Hungry bellies? All right. So that's drainage. What I want to show you guys, because this is what most people in the panhandle of Texas deal with, is a graph that's going to look like this. So you can see where we put the probe in, we started off pretty full, and if you guys can see this trend, and I'll put an arrow up here for you so I don't have to do this, you can see which way he's trending. With each irrigation, he has lost ground. So you see the spike here, very beginning, and then the next irrigation, and he's losing ground with every single pass. That is not what we want to see. And so one thing I would always tell you guys to do, if you have probes, you're going to get them. You come to a point in time, and I believe this girl came to me, where are we at here? It's about right here. So we didn't have any of this data. So just forget this for a moment. He came to me about right here, and he says, Russ, what's going on here? And so with a probe, you can always sit there and ask, okay, where am I at? So you can sit here and look this, okay, I'm here. So where have I been? Well, I know I've been way up here. And you can ask the question of where am I going? Well, you're looking at your trends and you can see I'm headed in the wrong direction. And the next question is why? So those are the questions I would tell anyone in here to always ask. Where am I at? Where have I been? And where am I going? That's on this summary graph. And the answers are, you're losing ground, and what can you do about it? So you see he was losing ground, and then in the second part of this graph, he was able to maintain, and I'm about to show you why. So the answer to those questions of where am I at, where have I been, where am I going, are always going to be on the moisture or the individual sensors. This is where the information is. So this guy was losing ground every irrigation. Why? Why was he losing ground? Right here. So I can see exactly how deep your water is going, or you can. And early season, everywhere there's a spike, remember that irrigation hit that 4-inch layer, okay? Early season, look, you barely see spikes. This is 4, 8, 12, 16. Barely see a spike there. Not enough to actually increase water at 16. Here's 20, here's 24, here's 28, all the way down to 36. You're not seeing any water down here. As that crop continues to grow and use more water, he's basically draining his bank account, and he's not putting money back into it. So when he came to me and asked me, hey, what's going on, what should I do? We took a look, we saw this, and we saw that he was going way too fast. He was putting on a pass about every 3 to 4 days, putting out about maybe 3/4 of an inch. So I advised him, slow down just a little bit, put out more water. And right here is where he came to me, and you can see he started pushing a lot of water a little bit deeper. And with each pass, he was able to gain some ground. And that's why, if we go backwards just a second, that's why he finally leveled off. He did catch a timely rainfall there. You see 2 events that happened back to back, right here and here, but that allowed him to catch up, but he was able to maintain. So in this instance, he didn't gain any more water, he didn't dig another well, he just changed his irrigation pattern up. He slowed down, same amount of water, same sprinkler, same nozzle package, everything, but everything in his field changed. If he'd have continued on the way he was going, I can't guarantee, but more than likely he would have lost between 20 and 50 bushels the way he was headed. And that was pre-tassel. You can see the date at the bottom. That was around the 1st of July. He would have tasseled around the 10th to 15th, somewhere in that range. So he was going way backwards, and that would have cost him dearly. So let's move on forward because I've already approached lunchtime. So on all that information, with all that information, it goes back to some of these other things, fertigation. So if I know where my roots are actually pulling, and if I can look at my graph and see how deep my irrigations are going, and I'm about to put on fertilizer, I know what I need to do. If I'm pushing water at 48 inches with each pass, and I'm only pulling from 24, I have a decision to make. Speed the sprinkler up, whatever the case may be. I can't answer that for you in your particular situation, but those are decisions you can make. Going, okay, I see the weather, can I afford to speed up? What can I do to make sure that I have access to this fertilizer I'm about to put out? You know, specifically early season, this is going to probably matter more early season than most of you guys, where you have shallow roots still, and hopefully you are watering heavy enough to go ahead and fill your profile. Then you can probably speed up, your plant can handle it, you're not using that much. But those are key elements into the final product of what you're putting out there. And then right now, where everybody's at, black layer, final irrigation. Really simple. When you hit black layer here and over there, do I need to water again? You know, you look at this first graph, roughly, give or take, most corn crops will use 2 weeks of water after black layer. It is variety specific. Some will use water longer, some a little bit less, but on average 2 weeks. So if you hit black layer here and you know you got 2 weeks of water usage left, give or take a few days, I'm going to put on more water. And I'm looking at the forecast too. Come over to this guy, I'm watching it. You know, I've had conversations with a few of you guys in here, and this is what we're doing. We're watching it. We've got 90, 95 degree days with 30-mile-an-hour winds yesterday, but we know the forecast coming up. And the other thing is, you do not, most guys anyway, you don't want to harvest here, up wet. You don't want your corn to be ready if you can keep from it and you're sitting near this full point, because if you do get a ½ inch or inch of rain and you're that wet, it's going to take you 4 times as long to get back in the field as if you could get somewhere down in here. You're going to dry out a lot faster. Plus you pay for all that. Why do you want to pay for water that you can't use? So those are things to think about end of season where you can really save some money. And then again, just that, how effective are you? How good of an irrigation manager have you been? Can you do it better? And these are questions that the Water District, I think, has done a great job, from what I've seen over the past 5 years, of trying to answer some of those questions. Can we do better? I know this is the way we've always done it, but we can't continue to do it the way we've always done it. That's why we're running out of water. So these are great questions to ask, and tools like this are going to continue to be key in how we see that. You know, we get to see underground, we get to take an x-ray and take a look at some things we've never been able to see. Yeah, push probe works, but it can only tell you so much information. This is giving you live, accurate information. Again, you can use this in any crop you want. Fall cover crops, you can enable like wheat crops. If you're going to take it to grain, you'll be able to see when dormancy breaks. If you really want to push your yields, you can see from this graph, it drinks a lot of water. You can see the giant pools there at the end of the year, or end of the season. Alfalfa, another thing, a lot of guys are using this in. But at the end of the day, this is what everybody wants to see. Does it pay for itself? And we guarantee it. You don't like it, first year you get your money back. But these are the paybacks we're seeing just on whether it be yield and or money savings on water. These are what guys are telling us. So that's all I've got. I went over by 4 minutes. I apologize. But if you have any questions or need to see more, I'm sure we can make a few minutes after lunch, or just come find me.